Alpha Fantasy Football League. We are back. It is the 2023 to 2024 season, and this is going to be the draft recap. Looking forward to another good year. Just as a recap of last year, our defending champion, is Richie Blitzen Ritz. So congrats to him for getting into the playoffs. It was a pretty competitive playoff and it was fun, and so congrats to him. So he's the guy that everyone's trying to knock off. We had our draft, live draft again, so it was a lot of fun. Was a kind of a rough time period because it's just been a crazy busy month, right? So many things going on, and on top of that, there's just a lot of people getting sick. So, and that was no different with our league. So we actually had a few guys who weren't available. Darren was still getting sick. Mike last minute. Mike LaRue was out sick. Aaron too couldn't work. He couldn't make it because he was working. Jeremy too was a last minute, not available, and same with James. So James was busy because he was about to go on vacation, and so several of those guys were on auto pick. James was on auto pick. Jeremy was on auto pick. Mike was on auto pick. So we had 3 guys on auto pick. Dan was able to log in on Zoom, and the same, like Mike B was able to log on Zoom as usual. And who else? Actually, Mike LaRue was on for a little bit, but he wasn't available for the full time. Everybody else was able to be there in person. So Brad came, Gary came, Morgan came, I was there, Eric was there, and Richie came. And so we had a good time. We had a lot of good food. The theme was more like Mediterranean, so I catered from Shaloha. So we had some schnitzel, shawarma, eggplant, falafels, hummus, pita chips. Was good. And Brad was brought the star entree of the day. He had these smoked lamb popsicles. So those were so good. It was perfect. So we had a lot of good food. Good drinks too. Had some white Negronis and whatever else people drank. And then we're drinking Monsters, alcoholic Monsters. And that was a good time. Speaking of drinks, today's drink is a old fashioned because we're getting back to basics. I haven't had one of these in a minute. I'm trying different bourbons, just trying to find something to mix with. This is with a Dickel. It's still good, I guess, because there's so much other ingredients in here besides it. But I did get one neat just to try to see what it tastes like. It has a really nice nose. So I would say really good for mixing. I would actually prefer this in a mixed drink than neat, because my favorite thing to mix with is Knob Creek. They have this 120 proof version, so it's really potent and really tasty, but it's really expensive too for a mixed drink. So I've just been trying to find something comparable. So in terms of the recap, we shuffled it like 3 or 4 times based on whatever EJ, and he picked the number 4 out of 10, and so we shuffled it 4 times on our draft software, and Darren was able to get the first overall pick. So the draft order was Darren was number 1, Mike LaRue was 2, Brad was 3, Gary 4, Aaron 5, Morgan 6, Mike B 7, Jeremy 8, I was 9, James 10, Eric 11, and Richie 12. What's kind of funny is that I think Richie was 12 last year too, so that's kind of a prime spot, especially if we're on a draft that snakes. You get some really nice end of the first round, top of the second round. That's a really good. So just to recap of what happened in the opening rounds, Darren took Christian McCaffrey first. Mike LaRue was able to get on the phone and get Justin Jefferson, so he keeps it in-house. He has a Minnesota guy. Also, arguably the number one guy in the draft. Brad went with Bijan Robinson for 3, so he went young, and talented. I don't know if Bijan was tops in terms of ADP. I think maybe Eckler's higher than him, possibly Saquon, but not a problem. Actually, no, I take that back. There's a couple of receivers that were on our draft software. I think Jefferson was number 1, and Chase was number 2, and then there was McCaffrey. So he actually took him. Everybody passed on Chase for a little while. Anyways, number 4 was Gary, who went with Travis Kelce, tight end. This might be the highest a tight end has ever been taken in a draft, but if you look at the landscape of tight ends, that might not be a bad idea, because in my opinion, at this point in time, actually I take that back. Historically, the previous few seasons, you can rely on Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and that's it. Last year, everyone was still, even those other guys who were good, like Kittle and a bunch of other guys, they're just not reliable. But Kelce and Andrews, pretty good. So can't blame him for taking Kelce, tight end, at 4th overall. The 5th overall pick, Aaron was auto picking, and he got Austin Eckler. Morgan went with Jamar Chase, so got some good value there. Mike B selected Saquon Barkley, so he can pick his New York guy. Jeremy was on auto pick, and he got Tyreek Hill. I went and got Amon-Ra St. Brown. As the homer I am, I took a Detroit guy 1st overall. James auto picked with Cooper Kupp. Eric picked Derrick Henry, some pretty good value, and then Richie got CeeDee Lamb. So that was the 1st round. So we'll actually go to the 2nd round too. As it snakes around, Richie went ahead and took Stephon Diggs. So he went receiver. Eric went running back because he got Najee Harris after that. James took AJ Brown, so he auto picked 2 receivers. And then I went back to the Lions and picked Jahmyr Gibbs, rookie running back from the Lions. Jeremy auto picked with Josh Allen. Mike B auto picked with Jalen Hurts. Actually, not auto pick. He picked Jalen Hurts. Morgan took Nick Chubb, pretty good there. Aaron took Tony Pollard. Gary went with Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs just came back just in time. Re-signed with the Raiders after holding out. And then Brad picked Garrett Wilson. I think he's on the upswing, especially he has a better quarterback in Aaron Rodgers coming to New York. And then Mike LaRue got Devontae Adams, kept it in the division. He didn't keep it in the division. Devontae Adams from the Raiders. And then Darren picked up Patrick Mahomes. We'll stop there. We'll just review some of the picks from everybody else. One of the things that we've noticed in this particular draft is how one of the biggest trends was both taking wide receivers and running backs high, and then a few quarterbacks. But what was interestingly is what we found, especially when we came to the auto picking guys, is it tended to have quarterbacks at the top of the board. But we tried to resist that for the auto pick guys, because otherwise you guys would have had quarterbacks in rounds 2, 3, and 4, and we just unilaterally, anybody who was in the house, we saved you auto pick guys, and we did not let you have go top heavy with quarterbacks. I don't know. I figure we have to make some kind of plan in terms of maybe having some rules set in place, like you can only take a quarterback one time in the first 5 rounds or something like that. I don't know. That's just a random idea off the top of my head. But it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult for us in terms of auto pick. I think what we have to do is we have to create some kind of rules for the auto pick guys. Otherwise, you guys are gonna be stuck with a weird roster. I don't know. Hopefully, maybe next year everyone's a little bit more healthy and we can have more people in person, and then we don't have to worry about it too much. How about this as an idea? Would you guys be okay with having someone proctor your draft? Like someone to sit in and draft in your behalf? Just a thought, because there are guys who have asked about joining our league, but they can't because, you know, we're full. And as long as you guys play and as long as you want to be in the league, nobody gets kicked out. But there are people who want to join the league, and I just unfortunately just have to say, I'm sorry, you can't. Would you be okay with having just other people stand in for you and we just let them draft in your behalf? As long as they're above board and they do a good job, would you be okay with that? Because it's I don't know about the competitive advantage, because we can put it on auto pick and then it can just pick best player available, but you ended up picking like 3 quarterbacks in the first 4 rounds. Do you really want that on your team? And do you want us to make decisions in your behalf when we're your competitors? I don't know. Just a thought. In the case that we have auto picking problems, or we have just people who just can't be available and have to auto pick. Okay. So one of the reasons why I kind of waited on the draft is we were waiting for the draft grades to show up, and there were draft grades immediately from our draft software, but I was kind of waiting for the Yahoo's draft recaps. So they gave a draft grade and they gave your recap. So just briefly, if you take a look here, this was the immediate draft grades from our software. Our draft software is called Primetime Draft. So Darren actually got the highest score. He got an A grade. The other A's were Brad, who got an A, Aaron got an A, and then the B grades were Mike LaRue, Morgan got a B, James on auto pick got a B, and then Mike B got a C, Jeremy on auto pick got a C, I got a C plus, and then everyone else got D's. So Gary got a D, Eric got a D, Richie got a D. As you guys know, obviously when it comes to it grades you on the fact of where you pick in terms of ADP. So if you pick above the ADP, you're gonna have a higher grade. If you have a lower ADP, then you're gonna have a lower grade. So that might explain why people like me and Gary, who were more homers, got lower grades than people who followed the board a little bit more, especially like the auto pick guys. But here's one thing to know: I don't think we've ever had someone who won the draft in terms of the highest score, highest grade. I don't think the highest grade has ever won a championship. So that also goes to the fact that a big part of winning the league is how you make your moves during the season, right? So you have to be smart about your guys. And then the other grades, and we can actually compare them side by side. Darren again got the highest grade. He got an A plus. Best draft is awarded to the team with the most projected season points based on weekly optimal starting lineups. Mike B got an A, followed by Hurt So Good, who got an A. Richie got a B plus. Justwin Fields, who's Justwin Fields? I think that's Aaron. Justwin Fields got a B. Big Brad Wolf got a B minus. I got a D plus. Morgan got a D plus. Gary got a D plus. Eric got a D. James got a D, and Jeremy got a D minus. So a lot of D's in this instance. And so they even have the projected records. It's expecting Richie to go 12-2, Darren to go 10-4, Mike B to go 10-4, Mike L to go 9-5, Aaron to go 8-6, Brad to go 8-6, me to go 7-7, Gary to go 5-9, James to go 5-9, Morgan to go 4-10, Eric to go 4-10, and then Jeremy to go to 2-12. So it's that's based on your current roster and what it does is it makes assumptions on your best lineup, and it goes through each head-to-head throughout the year. Yeah, we haven't changed any rules in terms of scoring, and we haven't changed any rules in terms of our season and playoff format. So the scoring numbers are still the same from last year, and the playoff format is we're foregoing the last week of the season, which is week 18, and we have 3 weeks of playoff. So we have one wild card round, and then we have a semifinal and a final. And then, so the last thing I wanted to do was just look at the draft grades, because they actually had a written summary, and so we'll actually read it, because when I was going through it, they're actually kind of funny. Let's get Sherry out of here. So here's Darren's recap. Wide receiver rehab center grade, A+ grade, second place projection. They're fixing more than just wide receivers. I think these are generated by AI, but they do a pretty good job, and they kind of personalize it. And one thing I noticed is, just like they're talking about, they do a play on your team name. So the way it says they're fixing more than they're just wide receivers, somehow it figured that out from Darren's team name. Anyways, it says, in the Halava Fantasy Football League, wide receiver rehab center came out swinging with the first overall pick in the draft. With a total of 14 rounds, they had plenty of chances to assemble a winning team, and boy did they deliver. Their A+ draft grade is proof that they know their stuff. Projected to finish in second place with a record of 10-4, they are clearly aiming high. With a projected total of 1,925.35 points, they're ready to light up the scoreboard. However, they'll have to overcome the 5th toughest schedule in the league. But hey, who needs an easy path to victory when you're fixing more than just wide receivers? While wide receiver rehab center made some great picks, they also had a couple of head scratchers. Their best pick was snagging Pat Freiermuth at 97, well below his ADP of 76, talking about a steal. However, their worst pick was taking Chris Godwin at 48, also with an ADP of 76. Maybe they were trying to keep things interesting. With 3 players on bye week 10, they'll have to strategize to keep the team firing on all cylinders. But with a team name like WR Rehab Center, they're used to dealing with setbacks and coming out stronger. Let's see if they can rehabilitate their way to fantasy football glory. So, pretty good, right? It's like someone looked at their league, looked at who was playing, and wrote something. Their best draft pick is Pat Freiermuth. Worst draft pick is Chris Godwin. Mind you, this is just the draft grades on who was drafted. There were already moves. The other thing that's mentioned here is 14 rounds, and so we settled on, I think, a 5-man bench, which I think is a nice sweet spot. We had a bigger bench last week by one. Yeah, so last year I think we had a 6-man bench. We shortened it by 1, and I think maybe that'll be kind of a sweet spot for it. Honestly, everyone was kind of done by round 14 anyway, because your positions are 1 quarterback, 2 receivers, 2 running backs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a flex, a tight end, defense, and kicker. So that's 11 teams, and then you have 5 on the bench, so 14 rounds. Let's jump to Mike B. Brownsville Jets soar with stellar draft, projected to land in second place. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, the Brownsville Jets took flight with an impressive draft performance, earning them a well-deserved A grade. Positioned in the 7th spot of the draft order, they navigated through 14 rounds of finesse, making strategic picks that left their opponents green with envy. With a projected record of 10-4-0, the Jets are set to dominate the league, landing in a comfortable second place. Their projected points of 1,895.53 are sure to leave their rivals trembling in their cleats. While the Jets are ready to soar, they'll face some turbulence along the way. Their schedule is the 4th toughest out of the 12 teams, but that won't stop them from reaching new heights. Despite having 4 players on bye week 13, the Jets have the talent and depth to overcome any obstacles. Their best pick of the draft was undoubtedly DJ Moore, selected 66, surpassing the ADP of 56. This pick alone showcases the Jets' keen eye for talent. However, not every pick was a touchdown. The Jets' worst pick of the draft was Odell Beckham Jr., chosen at 90, falling short of their ADP of 117. But hey, even the best pilots hit a few air pockets now and then. So Mike B got our second best grade. Okay, hurt so good. This is Mike B. Mike. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, the Hurt So Good team showed their draft prowess by earning an impressive A grade with a projected record of 9-5-0 and projected finish in 4th place. They seem to be off to a solid start. Despite the second toughest schedule difficulty out of 12 teams, the team is ready to face any challenge that comes their way. The Hurt So Good team made some notable picks in the draft. Their best pick was Brandon Ayuk, who was drafted at 95, well below their ADP of 66. This steal of a pick is set to exceed expectations and contribute significantly to the team's success. On the other hand, their worst pick was Deshaun Watson, who was drafted at 71, higher than their ADP of 92. While this pick may not have been ideal, the Hurt So Good team has proved that they can overcome any setback with their clever team name and strategic draft choices. I don't know. Your recap was kind of boring, Mike, but oh well. You got an A, so who cares? Next up is our defending champ, Blitz and Ritz. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, Blitz and Ritz team showed off their drafting skills by snagging a B+ grade. Despite being stuck with the 12th pick in the draft order, they managed to make the most of their selections across the 14 rounds. With a projected record of 12-2-0, they're poised to dominate the league and secure the coveted first place finish. Their projected points of 1,856.6 put them in a league of their own, while their scheduled difficulty of being the 12th toughest team out of the 12 is nothing but a minor inconvenience. It seems like the Blitz and Ritz team is ready to blitz their way to victory, leaving their opponents in a state of awe and disbelief. While every pick in the draft matters, the Blitz and Ritz team managed to make some standout choices. Their best pick was undoubtedly David Montgomery, a Detroit Lion, who they drafted at 85, beating out the player's ADP of 78. It's clear that the Blitz and Ritz team has an eye for talent and isn't afraid to take risks. However, not every pick was a home run. Their worst pick was Brian Robinson, who they drafted at 84 despite the ADP of 103. But hey, even the best teams have their moments of questionable decision making. With their B+ grade and projected first place finish, the Blitz and Ritz team is ready to blitz their way to fantasy football glory, leaving their opponents in a state of Ritz-induced confusion. See how it has those play on words with whatever your team name is? Just Win Fields. This is Aaron. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, Just Win Fields made their mark with a draft that earned them a solid B grade. With a projected record of 8-6-0, they're set to finish right in the middle of the pack at 5th place. Their projected points of 1,881.09 should be enough to keep them competitive, but not enough to make a real splash in the league. Just Win Fields showed some promise with their draft picks, but also made a few questionable choices. Their best pick was snagging Tony Pollard at the 20th spot, a steal considering his ADP of 15. However, they stumbled with their worst pick, reaching for Mike Evans at 68 when his ADP was a more reasonable 86. With a scheduled difficulty ranked 8th toughest out of 12 teams, Just Win Fields will have their work cut out for them. Hopefully they can live up to their name and find a way to come out on top. Just win. Speaking of Mike Evans, one of the headlines I know about him is he's a trade target. I don't know if they're really interested in him or not, but my Lions, he's been kind of connected to the Lions for some reason. That would actually be pretty good. Otherwise, he stays with Tampa Bay, and they have a new quarterback, Baker Mayfield. I don't know. Mike Evans, he's been solid after all these years, and he's still kind of in that prime range. He's not over the hill quite yet. So it's just, you need to have a measure of stability for wherever he's gonna play. Big Brad Wolf. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, the Big Brad Wolf had their chance to shine in the draft, but unfortunately they only managed to muster a B- grade. With a projected finish of 5th place, it seems like this team is destined for mediocrity. The draft order was kind to them, granting them the 3rd pick, but it remains to be seen if they can turn that advantage into success on the field. The Big Brad Wolf's draft performance was a mixed bag. They made a solid pick with Joe Burrow at 46, beating out the average draft position by a few spots. However, they stumbled with their worst pick, selecting Jordan Addison at 75, a full 32 spots ahead of their average draft position. It's clear that this team has some work to do if they want to live up to their namesake and become the alpha of the league. So I tend to see that the same across the board, whether it's Yahoo, ESPN, or any other analysis where it does not like receivers. But there has been a tendency for rookie wide receivers to do better than expected. And in the case of Jordan Addison, who joins the Minnesota Vikings, he could do well, right? Because Thielen is gone. Thielen moved on to Carolina. Justin Jefferson is going to be a guy who gets all the defensive attention. And so Addison was he a Biletnikoff winner? Was he the best receiver in the country last year? Well, not last year, but the year before. I think he won it. And so he has opportunity to do well. So even though Yahoo hates your pick, Brad, he might do good. Mia Milo. It's my turn. I'm ready for the shade. It says, in the Halava Fantasy Football League, Mia Milo had the privilege of selecting 9th in the draft. With 14 rounds to work with, they managed to put together a team that earned them a less than stellar draft grade of D+. While they projected to finish 7th in the league with a record of 7-7-0, it's safe to say that Mia Milo's path to glory won't be an easy one, as they face the 9th toughest schedule out of 12 teams. To make matters worse, they'll have to navigate through bye week 7 with 3 players on the sidelines, which is never an ideal situation. Despite the lackluster draft grade, there were a couple of bright spots for Mia Milo. Their best pick came in the form of Dameon Pierce, who was selected at 57 despite having an average draft position of 45. Seems like Mia Milo managed to find some value there. On the other hand, their worst pick was Quentin Johnson, who was taken at 88 despite having an average draft position of 128. Maybe they were hoping for a hidden gem, but it looks like they were reaching a bit too far. Additionally, Mia Milo took a gamble by drafting 5 players from the same team, which could either pay off big time or backfire spectacularly. Only time will tell if they made the right call. So that's kind of funny. It caught the fact that I picked 5 Lions, and it shows I went the homer route. But it's not without purpose, right? I'm gonna pick a lot of players from my team if I have a lot of faith in them, and this just so happens to be that year. A lot of people, there's been a big hype train with the Lions too, right? They were selected to be on opening night this Thursday against Kansas City, and they have a chance to like show the world. This after last year when they had 0 primetime games until the very last game, which they were flexed into because they just so happened to be more interesting than everybody else. And they proved their worth because they flexed them into the Sunday night football game against Green Bay, and they stomped on Green Bay, even though they had nothing to play for. They're already eliminated from the playoffs. So I have a ton of faith in my team, and I'm gonna live and die with them. I'm gonna enjoy watching my team play, and if they're successful, I will be successful in fantasy. If they're not successful, I'm gonna suck in fantasy. But it is what it is. That's what we're doing. My team has a lot of lines in it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jared Goff. It's crazy. Anyway, next up, Captain Morgs. In the treacherous waters of the Halava Fantasy Football League, Captain Morgs set sail with the high hopes, only to be met with a storm of disappointment. With the 6th pick in the draft, they had a chance to steer their team towards success, but instead they veered off course and crashed straight into a D+ grade. It seems their ship is destined to sink, as the projections predict a woeful 4-10-0 record and a lowly 10th place finish. Captain Morgan's draft strategy seemed to be more about quantity than quality, as they loaded up on a staggering 6 running backs, well above the league average of 4. Perhaps they were hoping to form a human pyramid of ball carriers, but it's hard to see how that will help them when their projected points are a mere 1,828.87, the 6th lowest in the league. With the 6th toughest schedule and a player on bye week 7, looks like Captain Moritz will be stranded on Fantasy Island, desperately searching for a way to salvage their sinking ship. Now Morgan, definitely trying to probably needs a quarterback. Dandy Daddy Melch team. Gary. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, the Dandy Daddy Melch team had the honor of picking 4th in the draft. With 14 rounds to work with, they managed to assemble a roster that earned them a disappointing draft grade of D+. Their projected record of 5-9-0 and projected finish in 8th place certainly reflects the lackluster performance of their draft. Despite their efforts, it seems like Dandy Daddy Melch team is in for a rough season. One shining moment in the draft was when they snagged Jalen Waddle at the 28th pick, beating out his ADP of 25. However, they quickly squandered that success by reaching for Cortland Sutton at the 76th pick, who had an average draft position of 120. Jerry Jeudy is hurt, so Cortland Sutton is a lot more valuable than this at this point. It's safe to say that this questionable decision didn't win them any points with the draft experts. To make matters worse, Dandy Daddy Melch team ended up drafting 3 players from the same team: Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, and Marvin Mims Jr. Maybe they were hoping for some sort of secret synergy, but it's more likely they weren't paying attention to the draft board. I expect a bounce back from the Broncos, so it's not bad, and it's the anti-homer move, isn't it? I don't even know how to read this. Sunglasses, face, sunglasses. The draft that left everyone speechless. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, made quite the impression with their draft performance. Despite being dealt the 11th pick in the draft order, they managed to navigate through 14 rounds of picks. However, their efforts were met with a disappointing draft grade of D, with a projected record of 4-10-0 and a projected finish in 10th place. It seems like might have some uphill battles ahead. Actually, I should do this, yeah. This is what we'll do. With a projected record of 4-10-0 or projected finish in 10th place, it seems like might have some uphill battles ahead. With the team, while the team faced a tough schedule, ranked 7th out of the 10 teams, they also have to contend with 3 players on bye week 7. But it's not doom and gloom, for their best pick of the draft was Dak Prescott, who was drafted at 107, beating their ADP of 79. On the other hand, their worst pick was Michael Mayer, who was selected at 110, falling short of their ADP of 131. Looks like is set to keep us all on the edge of our seats this season. So even they hated on Michael Mayer, Oregon ended up dropping him anyway. James Swag team, we're almost done. D. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, James Swag team found themselves in the middle of the pack with the 10th draft order. With 14 rounds to work their magic, they mustered up a draft grade of D, which is about as impressive as the Swag-less dance move. Projected to finish 8th with a record of 5-9-0, it seems like their swag might not be enough to carry them to victory. Despite the lackluster draft grade, there were a couple of shining moments for James Swag team. Their best pick came at the 82nd spot, where they snagged Kyle Pitts, who had an ADP of 60. That's some swag-worthy value right there. However, not all picks were as successful. Their worst pick came at the 63rd spot, where they reached for Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had an ADP of 111. Looks like their swag might have blinded them on that one. With 3 players on bye week 10 and a scheduled difficulty ranked as the 11th toughest, James Swag team will need to bring their A game to live up to their name. And then lastly, at the bottom of the league draft grades for Yahoo is Mediocre Minions with a D-. Mediocre Minions drafting their way to the bottom of the barrel. In the Halava Fantasy Football League, the Mediocre Minions lived up to their name with a lackluster draft performance. With the 8th pick in the draft order, they had a chance to make a splash, but instead they belly flopped into a D- grade. It seemed like their strategy was to aim for the bottom, as they are projected to finish dead last with a dismal 2-12-0 record. The Minions' projected points of 1,763.09 are as underwhelming as their team name, leaving little hope for a successful season. The schedule gods didn't do the Minions any favors either, as they faced the 3rd toughest schedule out of the 12 teams. To make matters worse, they have 3 players on bye week 10, adding insult to injury. While they did manage to make a decent pick with Evan Ingram at 89, who had an ADP of 78, their worst pick of Devon A-Chain at 104 with an ADP of 128 shows a lack of research and questionable decision-making process. It seems like the Minions are determined to live out their name and embrace mediocrity with open arms. To Jeremy's defense, he was on auto pick. And we have a weird auto pick thing, right? We have a dice that we roll that chooses between the top 3, and then we have an ability to veto, as whoever is in the audience can say, like, that pick doesn't seem fair. And mind you, when we say it's not fair, it's like you start to overload on a position that you shouldn't have. Like, it wants to give you your third quarterback, and we're like, nah, that doesn't seem fair, so we pick a different position for you. But anyway, he's got a D-. It is what it is. But that's the grade for this year. And so that wraps up our recap of the draft. So I'm looking forward to a good year this year. Hopefully we have some prizes. We did try to size people for the ring. So if you didn't give me your ring size, text it to me and we'll see what happens. So that wraps up our draft. May the best person win. We look forward to a great 2023-2024 season. Alright, see you guys later. Okay, bye.